Oh, hello and welcome to What Are We Talking About with Jamie Jakes. I am him, and today we are going to do a rookie wide receiver review. We're going to go over every single rookie wide receiver that is fantasy relevant or that we think is fantasy relevant this year, and I'm going to tell you whether to draft them, whether not to draft them. Let's go ahead and get on started here. I am excited for this because this season's rookie class is so OP, and it's being drafted higher than any other rookie wide receiver class in fantasy football history, which is pretty crazy if you ask me, but not crazy once you kind of look into the talent that we have in this rookie receiver class. So we are just going to start on rolling down the ADP, and we are going to see who we see. And spoiler alert, we'll see one pretty early on here in Marvin Harrison Jr. He will be a rookie wide receiver for the Arizona Cardinals. Likely to see preseason action, which is pretty good news if you ask me. I like that a lot. I do not like his cost, though, at the moment. He is wide receiver 9, which is a lofty thing to ask of a rookie wide receiver. I get that we just saw Puka Nacua explode last year with Matt Stafford. Kyler Murray's a good quarterback, but not a guy that I think is going to really produce a top 9 wide receiver because Kyler will still use his legs. James Conner is still over there. And when James Conner goes down with injury, which is inevitable every single year, I think Trey Benson will fill in. And I don't think there's going to be enough balls heading Marvin Harrison's way, despite him being a generational talent, that really will justify him going at wide receiver 9. Garrett Wilson, if you're drafting Marvin Harrison ahead of Garrett Wilson, maybe it works out for you. Good luck. But I think the better process is just betting on Garrett. He's, talk about camp hype. You can't open your phone anymore on Twitter without seeing some Garrett Wilson hype. The problem with this part of the draft, like the early second round, is I really don't like any of these guys at cost. I'm really just scrolling past them and taking myself a premium running back. I'm either just taking Saquon or Jonathan Taylor in this range in drafts. And we're going to roll on down to the next name. Malik Nabers is going wide receiver 19. Now, he's got even more camp hype, a lot more camp hype than Marvin Harrison has. You are in New York, so you're going to get a little bit more hype than guys that play in Arizona. I am also not taking Malik Nabers. There was a point where his value dipped just a little bit, where I was able to grab him here and there, but taking a rookie wide receiver who's going to be on the Giants offense this year, who just lost Saquon. They lost their identity. I get it. Daniel Jones is back. I'm a fan of Daniel Jones. And at this cost, if I want to bet on Malik Nabers, I'd rather just get Daniel Jones, who people forget he does run for like 400 yards every season. He is coming off an ACL, so we'll see what his speed looks like. Sounds like he'll be healthy and good to go. I think I like Daniel Jones because you're getting him like basically last round of these drafts. But Malik Nabers, Mike Evans, first ballot Hall of Famer, you're asking a rookie to outperform him. Mike Evans in the same situation as he was in last year. DK Metcalf is going right after him. I think DK is probably going to have a top 10 wide receiver season this year, being finally the true number 1 in Seattle with a couple of other threats to keep the defense honest and not double team every single time. It's going to be an offense from this century. I think DK Metcalf's going to really blow up, and maybe Nabers does too. The good thing about him is he's going to be the number 1 wide receiver on the team. He's just so damn expensive. And even if DK is gone, if Mike Evans is gone, you still got Kyren Williams and Derrick Henry going right after Malik. So if all of those guys off the board, I'm circling back to Malik, but there's just too much hype about him. It's just never happening in the drafts that I'm personally doing. Okay, and now we are going to get into some good stuff here. Xavier Worthy, if you're leaving drafts regularly this season and you don't have 1 or 2 Chiefs on your team, I can't help you. What are you doing? You gotta have it's just like a cheat code in fantasy football anyway. Even where Patrick Mahomes is going, I love drafting him. I'm drafting him a whole lot if he does fall. If no one reaches on him, I'm pretty much drafting him almost every single time nowadays, because you can pair him with Rashee Rice or Xavier Worthy. Xavier Worthy, he broke the NFL Combine record, ran a 4.21 40-yard dash. He also broke Texas's wide receiver freshman receiving record. A lot of people say, like, oh, he's just a track star. Look at all these track stars that stink at football and never really panned out for fantasy football reasons. And I always say, well, go ahead and search, which I have, search all of their college production. Outside of one of them, Xavier Worthy by far had the best production as a wide receiver and out-targeted guys like A.D. Mitchell, who everyone's super excited about as well. We'll get to him in a little bit. But Xavier Worthy, especially for best ball purposes, maybe he has some boom and bust weeks, but those boom weeks are going to be insane. And everything that we're seeing out of practice, him going up against the ones, I'm loving what I'm seeing. It is a little bit of a bummer for Xavier Worthy purposes that he will probably have Rashee Rice to compete against. I think that's going to be a bummer, but at the same time, he's going to take a lot of those deep targets down the field. You do also have to worry about Hollywood Brown on the team. I've never been a big Hollywood guy. I get that he was brought there to be kind of like the deep guy, but I think they're like, wait, we can trade up and get Xavier Worthy. Why don't we just do that as well? And I think he's going to pretty quickly outcompete Hollywood Brown. And everything that I'm reading and seeing with my eyeballs out of camp is kind of indicating that. Maybe I'm looking at it through rose-colored glasses because I love Xavier Worthy so much, but I am buying Xavier Worthy at cost. Right after him is Rome Odunze, a guy I am all the way out on. We did a whole bust fade episode on guys that I just think like the top 5 guys that are the most obvious fades, and Rome Odunze was easily one of those guys. He had outstanding college production. Most predictive thing from fantasy football is college production as a whole usually does pretty well in the NFL, but I think he could be similar to like the JSN in this class. For one, college film wise doesn't really separate, makes a lot of contested catches. It worked in college and it's working against the twos on the Bears, who have a bad secondary. So there are some highlights of him coming out of camp. But Ian Hartitz is doing a really good job right now of posting last year's hype videos on guys who are absolute busts and being like, oh, year 2 breakout for him. It's like, hey, there's a lot of camp hype that never really panned out. And I think Rome's going to be exactly that. That he has a first ballot Hall of Famer in Keenan Allen ahead of him, and probably another first ballot Hall of Famer in DJ Moore ahead of him on the lineup. So he's just not going to be on the field for enough to really justify this cost that you're buying in on him at. To be completely honest, I wasn't a fan of him coming out of college. I liked Xavier Worthy a lot more than him. He does have really high draft capital, but I think that we could look back at that pick 2-3 years from now and just be like, they really could have added to that offensive line or added to that secondary on the defensive side of things instead of taking a pretty luxury pick in Rome Odunze. He definitely has the ability to make me eat my words, but I'm not currently drafting him at his cost because Deontay Johnson, DeAndre Hopkins, quick note, DeAndre Hopkins has a little bit of a knee. Sounds like he'll be ready for the start of the season, maybe. But I would definitely stop drafting him at this cost right here. But you can scroll on down and get a guy like Ladd McConkey out of Georgia. The only red flag on him, ironically, is his college production. Wasn't great on a yards per route run basis. So when he was running routes and not just blocking, he produced extraordinarily well in Georgia. And every single report out of camp is like, yep, day one OTAs. He was like, yeah, I am the number 1 guy, and he's just held that position. Justin Herbert has a little bit of a foot thing going on. I'm not super concerned about it. Modern medicine, plantar fasciitis is a bitch to get through, but I think, even if it's not good, they're going to shoot it up and he'll deal with it throughout the season. I'm not super concerned. It's pretty early. And someone's going to be throwing him the football. It's Ladd freaking McConkey. He did run a 4.33 in the combine, legit speed, breakaway speed. And all camp reports are positive coming out that Ladd's going to be the guy. Scrolling on down again, super early in drafts that we're seeing these rookie wide receivers, and it's pretty justified in my opinion. Wide receiver 44, Brian Thomas is going 75 overall in these best ball drafts, and I'm buying it. The only thing that I'm kind of easing off on him a little bit is Evan Ingram is going right after him. So I'll take Evan Ingram as my first tight end because I'm not a premium tight end guy. I usually wait for Evan Ingram or Jake Ferguson in this range. So I will take them. But if Ladd's gone, if Ingram's gone, if nobody falls really far, I'm taking Brian Thomas, and I'm not having too big of a struggle with it. There's no real hype coming out of Jacksonville whatsoever. I don't know if they're like not allowing cameras in camp or what's going on there. There's just not a lot of hype, not a lot of news in the positive or negative direction for anybody. Like Christian, no one's talking about Christian Kirk, no one's talking about Evan Ingram. No one's even talking about how Trevor Lawrence is looking. So I don't know, maybe there's just a nobody there and it's Jacksonville, so nobody cares. But it doesn't concern me much. I do believe in him as an athlete. His film was spectacular. His overall production was good. His yard per out run was not good, but he went up against Neighbors. So there is a couple of, red flags, but he wasn't in an unprecedented situation going up against a generational talent in Malik Neighbors in practice every single week. And now we're seeing Malik, kind of cook the Giants defensive secondary, which maybe isn't saying much, but it's saying enough to me where it's just like, hey, this guy could really break free in a good offense. He's in a great situation, in my opinion, having a true number one in Christian Kirk there to kind of play alongside as hopefully a 1B to Christian Kirk's 1A, and Gabe Davis to kind of open up the field for him on the opposite side of the ball as well. So you have to scroll down a little bit more to get to your next guy, Adonai Mitchell for the Indianapolis Colts. He is currently going wide receiver 60, and he was that other Texas boy that ran alongside Xavier Worthy. There was a lot of hype for him coming out of the NFL or going into the NFL draft that, hey, this is maybe he's going to go first round, maybe ahead of Xavier Worthy, even after the combine. I never really bought in on that. If you look at his college production, it was bad. It was really, really bad. He was also a transfer. He got run off by, I think, Ladd McConkey ran him out of Georgia, if my memory serves me correctly. He's shined in camp, but he's not really running with the ones as far as I can tell. And I don't think that's going to change. I get it. There's big holes in that wide receiver room. But I really think Anthony Richardson is only going to allow one wide receiver to thrive. And I think it's going to be Michael Pittman. A.D. Mitchell, I don't think anybody is saying anywhere in the same ballpark as Pittman. I think Pittman's going to have a huge year. I think AR is going to have a huge year. But I think he's going to spread the ball out more. I think he's going to run the ball more. And they got Jonathan Taylor for all 17 games this season, barring injury. So I can't get behind A.D. Mitchell at this price range. I'd way rather go ahead and just take Josh Downs, who I loved on film last year. He really came on towards the end of the season, and it'll surprise you. Check out this stat line: is 68 receptions, 771, which is way above that threshold that we're looking for rookie wide receivers to meet to have that true second year breakout, and 2 touchdowns. So I'm rather, even if I have that AR stack, I'm just scrolling down and getting Josh Downs ahead of A.D. Mitchell. Gabe Davis also going in this range. Xavier Legette, even first round talent, is going after A.D. Mitchell. Xavier Legette went in the first round. He's going to get more opportunity. Chances are, granted, that might not be the best offense, but since we're talking about him, Xavier Legette, stud, looks a little bit like Julio Jones. I've been saying, don't tell anybody I said that, but looks a little bit like Julio Jones, even in practice. Man, oh man, Xavier Legette, he's hilarious. He's got a weird kind of funny accent. Carolina, maybe it just works better this year. Maybe they figure it out. Maybe Bryce Young bounces back. And if they do, Xavier Legette's going to be a steal, being the number 1 or number 2 target there in Carolina. He could just win over the role pretty quickly. They don't need him to run a lot of complicated routes. As far as I can tell, he's a pretty just tell me what to do, coach, and I'll go do it sort of guy. make it simple for Xavier Legette is what I'm saying. And I think Carolina will make it simple. They're just like, yeah, we need him to run a post and a go. And that's what they're going to have him do. And I think it's going to work. I think it's going to work in Carolina. I think Bryce Young will have a bounce back season. So I am buying Xavier Legette, and I have no problem scrolling past AD Mitchell. I was kind of big on Jerry Jeudy. One note, because I have talked a lot about him in the podcast. Sounds like he has like a somewhat serious, he'll be ready for the season, but somewhat serious lower body injury is kind of what we're finding out. That's why we're seeing Elijah Moore highlights coming out of camp. So don't get too excited about Elijah Moore, because I think Jerry Jeudy will come back. But health-wise, Xavier Legette sounds like he's 100% healthy right now. So I'm just going to scroll past all those guys and just go ahead and take him if everybody else is off the board. Ricky Pearsall, almost missed him. Feels like he's been in the NFL forever now. A lot of good news coming out of camp for Ricky Pearsall. Sounds like he's going to be a stud for them in the future. I don't think this is going to be the year for him, though. Kittle's still there. People forget. Obviously, you got Christian McCaffrey stealing a lot of the rock in San Francisco, and then obviously Deebo Samuel, and I think Brandon Ayuk, as I'm recording, still hasn't re-signed yet. I think, and I've always kind of maintained this all offseason, will play for San Francisco, whether it'll be on that 5th year or they extend him, throw him a bone, maybe, give him a 5th year plus a raise or something like that. I think Ayuk is going to be on the field, and if that's the case and they both stay healthy, there's not going to be enough of a ceiling for Ricky Pearsall here. And betting on Deebo and Ayuk to go down with injury and Ricky Pearsall kind of inheriting that role, hey, that's a fun thing to think about, but a little bit rich for my blood here at wide receiver 68 when I can just usually take Xavier Legette like we just talked about. After him, it's pretty sparse in terms of the wide receiver position, but there are running backs and quarterbacks you can take in this range, tight ends that you can take in this range that I like to over Pearsall. Jermaine Burton has a little bit of a tweaked ankle thing. Doesn't seem to be too big of a deal long term, but short term, you never love having your rookie wide receiver who's got some concerns about character or whatever coming out of the combine and going into the NFL, kind of falling in drafts. He played all right in college. I was never really a big fan of him film-wise. Had production, did fine, didn't really impress in the combine like a lot of his supporters were saying he was going to. Combine, you take it with a grain of salt sometimes. But, obviously we've got a true alpha male at the receiver position in Cincinnati already in Jamar Chase. I think he's a little bit overinflated in terms of value. He's going like 4 overall. I think he should probably be going like 8 overall. But that's just drawing straws. I don't see the ceiling for Jermaine Burton. He's just a guy who might just be riding the bench all season. So, I would even, in a pinch, take a guy like Adam Thielen, who at least we know is going to play. Michael Wilson, who at least we know is going to play. Wan'Dale Robinson, who at least we know is going to play. Demarcus Robinson, who I absolutely love. So because of those guys that are going immediately after Jermaine Burton, I'm just not buying in on his stock right now. Oh, and my sweet boy, Roman Wilson. I am so sad to hear about his injury. Sounds like it's pretty bad. He'll be ready to start the season by all reports, but at the same time, it's like, oh, man, you'd really like to see that 3rd round wide receiver get more work in and get the opportunity to win that starting role. Not a lot of camp hype before the injury. Most of the time we see those Pittsburgh Steelers 3rd round wide receivers kind of get eased in to the role. They're going to run a lot of 2 wide receiver sets in Pittsburgh, which is another kind of red flag. They're going to run the ball a lot in Pittsburgh. So he was a guy I was drafting a lot, I'll be honest. Kind of eased up on him after kind of like poor camp reports and the guys that are going kind of immediately after him. Roman Wilson, it's sad. The injury is really going to hamper his rookie season, maybe be a year 2 breakout candidate. But this year I don't think is going to be the year at this cost, at least. DJ Chark going right after him. Sounds like he'll be running with the ones in LA. Maybe not have a ton of volume, but a guy that maybe I'd take a peek at. Even Greg freaking Dortch might take a peek at him over Roman Wilson. Same thing with Malachi Corley. Third round guy. They were super excited about him. He's running with the twos right now. Seems like it's just going to be like an Allen Lazard, Breece Hall, and then obviously Garrett Wilson show, even like a Tyler Conklin show over a Michael Corley show, at least this year for the Jets. I don't know. Small school guy. Didn't look like he was a way better athlete than the small school guys he was playing against, in my opinion. I don't know why the Jets were that excited about him. Maybe just it was like an Aaron thing or a Salah thing. And I think Aaron historically will kind of talk up his rookies. You don't even really hear him talking him up too much because he just can't stop talking about how good Garrett Wilson is. And why not? Garrett Wilson is just going to have like 45% of the targets in this offense. I think it's going to be nuts. And Corley, we'll see if he can develop into something special. This year ain't it for him. I'm not drafting him. Just scroll down and take Dortch. Same thing with Luke McCaffrey. Christian McCaffrey's brother. So there is that. Got a good pedigree. Washington Commanders. A lot of question marks up in the air. You got a rookie quarterback playing 17 games, of course, and a mobile rookie quarterback playing 17 games. Scary Terry, still one of the best receivers in the league. I don't care what anybody says. He's never really had the opportunity to perform. I'm just kind of fading all of the receivers on this offense. Brian Robinson, I think, is going to be a stud for them. But that offensive line is going to be a struggle. Any production from the quarterback position, unless you're the true number one on this team, you're going to have a really, really tough time producing. He had a couple highlights in OTAs or whatever. Other than that, he's not had too much excitement coming on behind his name. Javon Baker, another guy I'm like, oh, love his film. Love everything about him. Looks like he's performing really, really well in camp. So he is a guy, if Greg Dortch is gone, he is a guy I'm like, I'll take Javon Baker. Why not? The problem is rookie quarterback, maybe he starts. I think he's probably going to earn a starting role on this team. He's also got Polk to play against. Oh, when we missed Polk, let's circle back and get Polk. How did we miss him? Thank goodness I remembered. He'll be 131. 131. Oh, okay. So he's right after AD Mitchell. So that's how I missed him. Good thing I caught that. Wow. Good job. Good job for my brain. Wide receiver 61. Again, just like kind of what I was saying, like he's a little bit more expensive than the other guys. And I'm just going to take Josh Downs. Just give me Josh Downs. That's kind of my attitude. It's kind of been my attitude all off season. Just not going to be in a productive offense, I don't think. And Josh Downs will be, and I think he'll be probably the number 2 target there for an improved quarterback, an improved passing quarterback, I think, this year for Indianapolis. So just more touchdown opportunities for Josh Downs, and a guy I think I would way rather have over Polk. Even though I liked Polk, I liked his film coming out of college. He was a good receiver. Hi, just got back from the gym, realized definitely forgot to talk about Jalen McMillan, definitely forgot to talk about Troy Franklin, so let's do that very quickly here. And there's a pretty good reason I did forget about them, because I'm not too pumped up about either of these guys as prospects. That's not true. I love Troy Franklin as a prospect, actually. Was a big fan of his film. Was really disappointed to see him fall. There's got to be a reason for it, probably character concerns or medical concerns that we're unfamiliar with. It happens all the time where we'll have a good prospect and the NFL, for some reason, has different information that we do. He caught for like 1,300 yards his last year in Oregon with Bo Nix. So I don't know what's going on with him, but also not a ton of good reports coming out of camp for him. Same thing with Jalen McMillan. He actually does have some good hype coming in out of camp. It'll just be an issue with him because he's not a super highly drafted guy. And on top of it, he is in a wide receiver room that has a first ballot Hall of Famer on it, as well as a guy who will probably earn his way into a Hall of Fame when it's all said and done, and Chris Godwin and Mike Evans, of course. So 2 guys I definitely forgot. Whoopsie. Sorry. And of course, I forgot Keon Coleman as well. So let's go over him really, really quickly. Keon Coleman, just where he's going. You guys heard me talk all about how much I love Ladd McConkey, how much I love Brian Thomas. I'm no longer circling back. I'm taking D-Hop there. Jameson Williams, Curtis Samuel, or Josh Palmer are guys that I really would rather have in that range, in that neck of the woods in the drafts. He is going extremely high. Keon Coleman didn't really make me believe in him as what the Bills want him to be, which is like a true X receiver. I think Curtis Samuel is going to be the number one there, or he will be over Keon Coleman. They also have Dalton Kincaid. I think they're going to use Dawson Knox again. They signed him. They used him a lot last season. I think Dawson Knox will be a big part of it. I think they're going to run the ball a lot with Josh Allen and, of course, James Cook over there. And Keon Coleman, everyone's hyping all their draft picks up. The GM came out and was like, hey, this guy's just temper expectations. This guy's not going to be ready for NFL football. Highlights coming out. And he's funny, dude, which is why he's going so early, because everyone knows who he is. You know, Xavier Worthy's not doing a bunch of interviews, making a lot of people laugh. So people don't really know who they are unless they're sickos like you watching 30 minutes into a rookie roundup video. And we do appreciate you sticking around here. Two other guys that did come to mind as I was recording who aren't going drafted that you guys might want to have on your radar, especially in Dynasty, because I really like both of these guys, is Jacob Cowing is virtually going undrafted in almost all of these drafts. Just a big, obviously, log jam, including Ricky Pearsall ahead of him in the wide receiver room. Let's see if that problem solves itself in a couple of years, but we could be waiting on the Jacob Cowing breakout season for a few years. Small school guy, but like one of those small school guys reminded me a lot of like Tank Dell of last year. He's basically the exact same thing, smaller guy, and just nobody can guard him. He's got a 6 slant route, and the speed is insane. Just definitely doesn't look like he was supposed to be on a small school type of a field. And the one last guy that I do want you guys to have on your radar, especially for dynasty drafts, is Johnny Wilson. He's going in some drafts. He is also he's on Philly, so he's got 2 studs sitting ahead of him, more of a dynasty play. Or if, God forbid, we get news that there's a hamstring injury in camp, or an Achilles or an ACL, a season-ending thing, God forbid, to Devontae Smith or A.J. Brown, maybe Johnny Wilson might be a guy you might want to start just listening, putting your ears to the Twitterverse and seeing, hey, how's Jacob Cowing doing? And we're not hearing much out of Philadelphia whatsoever as of right now, positive or negative. So just a couple more guys I wanted y'all to have on your radar. And those, I'm pretty sure, are all the guys that are getting drafted in terms of rookies through 18 rounds in 3 wide receiver and 1 flex best ball draft. So the rest of them at the moment currently are either way under the radar or won't be fantasy relevant this season. Let me know if I missed anybody. I did miss Jalen Polk because I was kind of running through this pretty fast and loose as we were doing this quick rookie receiver roundup review show. Let me know what you think about the receivers. If you disagree, leave a comment in the comment section. Leave a like. Please share with your friend and subscribe to the channel. We'll see you next time.